What is up, everybody? Welcome to the UFC show, presented, of course, by Run Fear Sports. You know who we are. We got Titletown, I'm DC, and we got special guest, MMA expert, Boss T, Big T, joining me and Title on the show. Big T, we'll throw it right to you, man. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm excited. Titletown's been taking advantage of me these last few events, so I had to come on the show so I can soak in some knowledge from you boys. MMA has been good to me over since COVID.
Yeah.
Last 2 weeks, not as good, so I got to come on the show and get some winners myself.
Yeah, not the greatest card in the world. We are, of course, recording this on, if you're watching now, you know that, but if you're watching later, we're recording this Friday afternoon, so sometimes you do see fighters scratched or whatever, but as of now, we do have a 12-fight card. Maybe not the best in the world, but hey, we'll take the fights when we can get them, especially with the NBA All-Star break. Title, we were talking pre-show. Like, I don't even know what is there to even gamble on tonight on Friday night. You said you had plans with the girl. I'm gonna have to find something to do. Title, what's going on, man? What do you think of this card? And yeah, just your general thoughts on life.
Yeah, I don't know what there is to gamble on tonight. Thankfully, I do have plans, so I can afford to take one night off of the year. I did Showdown Golf, so I don't know, maybe 364 to 365 days. I have money on stuff. But tonight, yeah, it'll be a nice little break. But yeah, this card, it's not the best card, but hey, there's still a prize pool. It's 100K up top, 200 people in the 555. So the prize pools are always there in MMA, which is all that matters. And yeah, it's not the best fight, a lot of low level fights. But I think we will keep all 12. We only had one weight miss today. That was Gabriel Benitez. He weighed in at 148.5. But that fight, he's still going to fight. He just gave 30% of his purse. So we should keep all 12 fights, which is good. Excited to have Big T on here because if you guys watch some shows with Big T, when he was on the MMA, when DC was out, when it was Mad Lab, DC, or Big T and me, we can talk. I can give a whole 5-minute explanation on why I like one fighter. And he'll just say, yep, I love the other guy for reasons that I said. And you don't even really realize. So Big T, I'm really excited to have him on. I know it's gonna come a time. I love this play. He'll be on the other side. He'll start chirping mine, and that's what makes these shows fun. So excited to talk some fights with you guys.
Big T, you love to gamble. Is there anything to gamble on tonight? Can I go to the bar? Is there anything that I can watch on TV?
Yeah, I played college basketball, which already started, but there's still more games tonight.
Okay.
And NASCAR, the trucks, what I'm famous for at Run Pure, the trucks.
The trucks.
You got the trucks at like 740 at Daytona.
Okay. And if you do want to subscribe to that, of course, it's free with the Run Pure Sports package. You guys know the drill with all that. We'll dive into the fights at this point. Obviously, as we mentioned, 12 fights, good action on DraftKings. I do imagine these tournaments will fill early. Normally they do anyway for MMA, but with no NBA action, that could be even more the case. So
did they go higher? Well, I wanted to look. Did they go higher at least for us? They still didn't go higher even on freaking All-Star weekend. Come on.
Why do you think their stock's down 20%? Come on. We need some new tournament sizers. Hopefully the live scoring will be working by this time tomorrow for MMA. I don't know if it's fixed for golf yet, but
people are. I love that too, by the way, DC. Like, because I don't do it. Like, people always think I'm not. I love when people just lose their minds over the golf scoring. Like, they can't look at the PGA app. I've had literally like probably 9 to 12 people just text me like, is your scoring working? Is your scoring? Yeah, I use the damn PGA app. I look how my guys are doing. So yes, it's working.
Well, I guess if you got Neiman, your teams are doing well. If not,
yeah, if you got Neiman, you're sitting pretty good right now.
League of Legends scoring, I guess, was off too. Like, there was like 324. I guess something creeps. I used to play League of Legends. I don't know it all, but I guess they put an extra digit in, so it's 3,000 something, and the score was all messed up, and people were tilting it a little.
That's why that stock's down, like DC said. Well, you got to get that scoring working.
If you're watching the show, you're feeling down with the lack of action tonight. And you're having a bad day, just know that the good people at DraftKings are probably having a worse day than you are. So hang in there with us during this hour talking UFC. Let's get into it. We'll start with the earliest fights on the card, as we always do. Go through each of the fights. Starting with the earliest, talking DraftKings, talking betting, and let's do it. First fight on this card. Two guys who have a little bit of UFC experience, Mario Batista and Jay Perrin. Batista coming in, one of the bigger favorites on the card, minus 350 to minus 400, depending on where you look. Both these guys are coming off a loss. Perrin lost his only UFC fight to Joseph last time out, and then Batista lost to Jones. Looks like Perrin maybe a bit of a wrestler. Again, just one UFC fight experience, so not a lot of UFC tape to look at him. But of course, you can, if you're a grinder like Title, go back to the regional tape. I did that back in the beginning of COVID when UFC was the only sport on the board. Don't always have the time to do it now. Title, throw it to you. Batista, Perrin, where are you looking at here?
Yeah, so this will actually be his UFC debut. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series two fights ago, and then he won that fight, but he missed weight. So if you go on the UFC website, they count that to the stats on the Contender Series. But he won that fight. He didn't get a contract, or he lost that fight, but he fought someone pretty good. He didn't get a contract. Then he fought in the Cage Titans, fought another promo, and now he's getting the call, and he's getting the call on short notice. Which is why he's got this call for Khalil Taha. And I mean, this Perrin guy, like you said, he's more of a wrestler. He wants the takedowns. He wants to get the fight on the mat. On the feet, he doesn't throw a lot of volume. He doesn't have knockout power. And he's going against Mario Batista, who, he's only 2-2 in the UFC. But man, this guy made his debut against Corey Sandhagen, which is a very, very tough debut. Obviously, he beat Miles Johns, he beat Jin Susan. This guy has fought good competition on the regional scene too. Coming off the loss to Trevin Jones, he got caught. The big weakness with Mario Batista is his chin. He leaves his hands down sometimes. He's susceptible to a left hook and stuff on the way out. Trevin Jones has power. He got caught. I had him winning that fight until that. He doesn't have to worry about that in this fight against Perrin. On the feet, it's Batista all day. He mixes it really well to the legs. He mixes it to the nice of the body, to the head. So it's Batista all day on the feet. I don't think Perrin's going to be able to close the distance and have success with the takedowns. Batista showed pretty good takedown defense, and he has a good get-up game too. So we always talk about it. There's levels to this stuff. Batista's fought the way better competition. This is going to be one of the easiest fights Batista's had in a long time, actually. Perrin had to take this fight on short notice. It just seems like a recipe for disaster for him. So 9,200 for Batista. I like him a lot, and we're going to get into the upper tier when we go through these fights. A lot of the upper tier is in fights that are supposed to finish, which obviously people look at. If this fight's supposed to finish, they're a big favorite. They play those guys a lot. And this fight's actually plus 110 to end inside the distance, which obviously it's just a coin flip. But if people are going to pick like the minus 110, the minus 150s to finish, I think Batista could get overlooked a little bit in this top range. And he has just as much upside as anyone. I mean, if this fight's on the feet for 15 minutes and Perrin can't find takedowns, I don't think Perrin can stand up for 15 minutes and take Batista's shot. So I think Batista is eventually going to get a finish. Could be second round, could be third round. But we know sometimes like a buzzer beater second round or buzzer beater third round finishes score way more than a first round finish. It's a minute 30 seconds in. So I have a lot of interest in Batista 9,200. Think he pieces them up on the feet. It's just a really tough UFC debut for Perrin. So Batista all day for me.
Yeah, that is one of the funny things about UFC DraftKings.
Buzzer beaters and running. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like, you can get the early finish in the first round, but if you don't get that, then you hope that it gets to the end of the first round so you collect those points. Yep. And then if you don't get that, then you hope it goes to the end of the second round and they finish. And it's like, I wish it was, they have. I
don't know the answer because you're right. Like, it's really tough to find the answer. But yeah, like the best is like a doctor stoppage after the first round. Really. Yeah. You get the first round finish, you got the whole 5 minutes.
And occasionally another thing, with the top control time and the points that takedown gets, occasionally you'll get like the most boring possible fighters that win in the most boring ways, right? Where they're just controlling their opponent, laying on top of them, landing strikes that aren't really doing any damage at all, but they're like, scored significant and you're getting the control time and they don't even get a finish and they put up like the top score on the slate compared to a guy who
O'Neal last week. Did you see that? I mean, like a split decision win and she puts up 129 and like.
I think I had her. Yeah. So
I did too, but
I wasn't complaining, but it's it just shouldn't be that way. But it is what it is. Big T, I know these are two of your favorite fighters here, Jay Perrin and Mario Batista. Give us your thoughts. Break it down. I want it more from a technical analysis, not from a DFS standpoint.
Good luck with that. I agree with you guys. First, though. I mean, the scoring Sometimes it's super frustrating. The knockouts to me are the most frustrating. Like when you get past that bonus time, maybe they knock them out like a minute and a half into the first round and they just don't have a ton of strikes and you end up with like 97 points or something.
And
which
you like the fighter like performed as good as they possibly could, and they're nowhere close to the optimal. It's like, come on.
I don't know. There needs to be some sort of like, I don't know how you could put a bias in because you'd have to have people that weren't. But like sometimes you just like that guy has to be optimal and he isn't, which is super tilting.
The reason
also like that also kind of makes MMA like the variance of the sport. Like, I mean,
right. We're not complaining that we've been like screwed over by it or anything like that. It's just.
It's gone both ways too, obviously. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, we've got rewarded and penalized. It's just super annoying when your dude just starches a guy and then he doesn't end up in the winner. Yeah. And like DC said, another dude's laying on someone for the whole thing and ends up scoring more.
At least they added the bonus though, because when they didn't have that first minute bonus,
that was the worst. When your dude would knock him out like 18 seconds in and he wouldn't be in the optimal, it was the worst.
It would be like the, the most dramatic finish ever. Masvidal versus Askren, right? He knocks him out with like 4 seconds with a flying knee, and he's like the 7th highest scoring fighter on the card. Like, come on,
that was the worst.
Some chick that carpet wrestled the whole freaking fight outscores him. But
one of the reasons I bring it up, Title, from a DraftKings perspective, like Perrin's route to victory here is takedowns. He did get 4 takedowns in that last fight, and I don't know. I mean, Mario Batista's takedown defenses looked okay, but like if Perrin does land those takedowns and controls
if he wins, he's going to score well for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I'd be shocked to see him win. I really would. But I'm also high on Batista. Like I had him last fight against Trevin Jones. I took the L there. Like I've had him in a lot of fights. So you know what I'm saying, but totally agree with you. His path is takedowns.
Yeah, I think I'm a little less high. I could see fading this fight entirely because I do think Batista is going to keep this on the feet. And these are bantamweights, right? 135ers, knockouts are fairly rare. And frankly, if you're on the feet the whole time and you don't get a finish, it's hard to get in the optimal at the end of the night.
Nearly impossible.
Yeah, nearly impossible.
Casey O'Neill last week somehow when she got
unless you're just literally in there just swinging the whole time.
Well, like Casey O'Neill, like Tyler said, like when you're with like the women's fighters when they can't knock each other out, they're like, all right, well, we'll just stand right next to each other and throw a million strikes.
And everything's counted as a significant strike with that.
Even though
none of them can hurt the other person.
To do any real damage. So Batista rightfully favored. Should win this fight, should control this fight, I think, with the striking. But if Perrin does win this fight, I think it's going to be with wrestling. And at 7K, like
that's optimal.
Yeah. So I will probably have a little bit of exposure to Perrin. Actually, maybe more than Batista, depending on, kind of roster builds, but probably mostly a fade for me. Let's go on to the next fight on the card. Unless Big T, you have a winner there, Batista, Perrin.
I mean, these are the fights I've kind of like started to like more just in tournaments where I don't think that many will play Batista. So I'm more on, I've tended to play more of the favorites in the not finish odds and fade the dogs in that spot, but there's no rhyme or rhythm to it. It's just kind of how I've done it. Cause I feel like the people gravitate more towards, because obviously when everyone looks at finish odds and then they see Batista 9,200, not favored to finish inside the distance, they're like, I'll take a stab on the dog. Batista hasn't been that good. So if I had to pick, I would pick Batista with title.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go to the next fight on the card. It is Jonathan Pierce and Christian Rodriguez, both coming off wins in the UFC. Pierce is the significant favorite here. Again, very similar odds to the last fight, -350 to -400, again, depending where you look. Pierce, pretty impressive in actually 3 out of 4 wins, but 2 in a row for him. A lot of takedowns for Pierce. He's way up there in terms of takedowns per 15 minutes, 7.2 takedowns per 15 minutes over his last 4 fights in the UFC. A ton of strikes as well. These are 145ers, big favorite. Pierce is expensive, 9,300 title, but man, if this fight goes the way that, he's planning to have it, where he's landing takedowns, control time, significant ground and pound when he does have control, this is a fighter who maybe doesn't even need a finish, right? Maybe you want him to go to the distance, just racking up points the entire time. So I certainly, again, I'm sure this will be reflected in ownership, but Pierce looks like a way better play than Batista, even though they're similar favorites to me. This fight also favored to finish, I believe, inside the distance, despite them being smaller fighters at 145. So right off the bat, early on, I think Pierce is going to be a popular guy to play, and I'm really having a hard time finding any reason, frankly, why not to play him other than the fact that he's very popular. So I like Pierce to kind of do whatever he wants with Rodriguez, and I think he's got a pretty good chance to be on the winner at the end of the night. Thoughts here, Title, on Pierce and Rodriguez?
Yeah, you hit pretty much everything on that. He's going to be popular, but for a good reason. Like we just talked about, we love top control. We love takedowns. And this fight's minus 250 to end inside the distance too. So Pierce, I mean, biggest favorite on the card. It all adds up for Pierce. I will say though, Christian Rodriguez he's making his UFC debut. He was the one that fought on Contender Series. He won, but he missed weight, so he didn't get the contract. This man can fight. This man can strike. This man is dangerous. The odds, I understand. Pierce has looked really, really good. He breaks his opponents. The longer the fight goes, his cardio takes over. He chains takedowns. He wears on you. Christian Rodriguez has a lot going against him in this fight. He took it on short notice, which is always very tough, especially against someone like Pierce and the cardio he has. He's up a weight class, which you never like to see. Pierce has a 5-inch height advantage and all that. But on the feet, and every fight starts on the feet, Rodriguez has fast hands. He has a lot of power. He's 7-0. This is no bum that's coming to the UFC. I think he's going to be in the UFC for quite some time, actually. Because we see Dana, when someone does Dana a favor, takes a tough fight, they usually give him another one. And I really do like what I see from this guy. So Pierce is going to be one of the most popular fighters on the card. Of course, I'm going to have a lot of Pierce. If he wins, it's going to be a big boy score, you think. But I love the leverage that Rodriguez gives you. This is like you like Perrin a little bit in the last fight. I'm going to take my shot on the dog in this fight because who's going to be probably the lowest owned fighter on the card. 10% maybe. You can easily get way overweight on that. You get leverage from the most chalky fighter. And I like betting on guys that I actually think are good. And man, this guy can strike. This guy's got power. He also has a wrestling background too. It's not the same wrestling as Pierce. There's levels to the grappling. I'm scared if Pierce gets success on the takedowns early, the cardio is a big concern, short notice, up a weight class and all of that. But I'm going to take a shot on Rodriguez because he can knock out Jonathan Pierce in the first round and absolutely break the slate at very low ownership. So minus 250 to end inside the distance. This is a fight. We talk about a card that we don't love too many fights. We're going to get to some of them that are like, man, this guy could win. This guy could win. They're not very good. This is a fun fight, a good scrap. I think the winner scores well. Obviously, Pierce is the biggest favorite for a reason, but I wouldn't put him as the biggest favorite. I wouldn't put him as a parlay piece and anchor my parlays around him. I think this line's a little wide. I think Christian Rodriguez is a good fighter with a lot of power. So very fun fight. But yeah, I'm going to take shots on Rodriguez as a dog and be overweight. And you have to have a lot of Pierce too, because he's going to get takedowns most likely if he's not knocked out.
Yeah, that all makes sense. My concern with Rodriguez as the dog, just in terms of DraftKings, is like, I think Pierce is going to keep going for the takedowns, whether or not he gets them. And when you're defending takedowns, you're not really scoring fantasy points, right? You're not like landing a ton of strikes. Like Pierce is going to push him up against the fence, try to drag him to the mat.
I'm saying like my thought process is like early on before he can even do that, like in the first 30 seconds, 45 seconds, maybe hammers away at the low kicks. He starts piecing them up a little bit and just starts feeling himself. Sure. If he gets taken down once, yeah, you're going to be in trouble for most of the round because Pierce isn't going to let you breathe. He's going to be all over you. And then, then you're not going to score very well. But in tournaments, I mean, if you get a 1 or you get a 40, they're not going to be optimal either way. We play for first place. So the floor, very low. But I think if he gets success early, then I think he truly has first round knockout upside. And you can't say that very often for a guy that's going to be 10% or whatever is the biggest dog. But you're totally right. Pierce gets one takedown. Rodriguez is in trouble for the whole round.
Yeah, Rodriguez to win in round 1. If you're right about that, if he does have a chance to finish this fight early, you can get that at plus 1,200, round 2 plus 1,600. Maybe you take a shot there if you want, just
I like the sprinkle plus one around.
A fun little sweat there, throw a half unit on it or whatever you want to do. I don't mind that, but I do really like Pierce on DraftKings. Big T, you and I had in-depth discussion yesterday. Dennis Schroeder, like the massive chalk, the ownership percentage. He ended up getting like the exact score where neither of us really won the argument. But
the funniest part is because I always talk about lowering my projections where we talked on the show how he's like low 30s, and I actually projected him at 27 on like my personal, because I wanted him lower than the field.
Right.
I didn't want him just on every one of my teams. Like I wanted him on like, I don't know, 40 or 50% of my teams basically. Yeah. And he ended up, I mean, I know it's because of a blowout, but that's kind of the point of why I didn't. Yeah.
The reason I bring that up is I wanted to ask you, how much do you take into account ownership projections when it comes to UFC, right? Because I actually don't know, but I would guess that because there are fewer UFC events, and it's to me the ownership projections for UFC must be less accurate than they are for NBA, right? Like you said, Schroeder is going to be 85% owned. He was almost exactly that, and I know that's a number that you looked up, not that one that you necessarily came up with yourself, but do you look at ownership? I assume you do for UFC, and how much do you try to like get away from the chalk? How much stock do you put in those, and how do you kind of formulate your strategy for building your lineups with projections and ownership projections when it comes to MMA, UFC?
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite part of MMA, honestly, because there's no like correlations for one, and you can kind of just leverage the field. So like this one, for example, we just talked about 9,200 Batista. Now you got 9,300 Pierce, and you got the main event, 9K Sweet Dreams or whatever his name is. I mean, so you have to choose. I mean, you can't play, and some people won't play two of these guys. I tend to play probably two of these guys because I don't mind like punting a spot and hoping I get lucky or whatever in the cheaper range. But so you just have to decide. And I think it's a hole and I've told Title this a ton, not even making fun of him. I just think that's how everyone does it. And I think he's actually changed a little bit. I'm not saying it's just because of me, but I think everyone just looks at these damn finish odds and no one's going to end up. And by no one, I don't mean literally no one, but like the first dude, Batista, just has to be way lower owned than Pierce and Hill. And I just don't think that's right because, the inside the distance say that, but the ownership is going to reflect it too, where, I mean, Jamil Hill has to be 50, 60% owned, just has to be in that spot. I mean, the first fight, Batista, has to be, I'd say probably 20% or so. So you're getting like a 3-to-1 discount. And I just don't think that's accurate in tournaments where I obviously am going to play all three of them, but I kind of like taking a stand, kind of like you guys said, where maybe you pick one of these dogs, whether it's Johnny Walker in the main event or one of these two that we just talked about, and just fade the favorite in that, even though that's obviously risky. But if you somehow hit the dog in these three fights, it lets you go way overweight on the other two. And it just gives you a clear path. And you know what? If you lose, you're still not dead. You're not going all in on the dog. It's just giving you different constructions with stuff where, I don't know, some weeks you're wrong. We talk about it all the time at Rut Pure. We move on to the next week. Mm-hmm. If you take stands, you're not going to be freaking right every time, especially when you're taking a 6,900 Christian Rodriguez who could get absolutely torched and you could end up with 0 points. But those weeks where Christian Rodriguez wins, like Title's talking about, your framework to ship the whole slate, I mean, is just exponentially higher,
which is a big thing in MMA. You don't want 150 dupe in MMA, which is a big thing. The less, obviously, the more you make. Yeah. Big T
happens every freaking week too. Like, what's the chances, honestly? These are the first two fights, right? These two we just talked about.
Yeah.
Like, what's the chances, honestly, both favorites come out and just roll? One of them will probably lose, right? I mean, it happens in MMA every week.
Yeah,
I don't know which one. I mean, obviously, if you knew, you'd have a huge favorite, but I don't like agreeing with Title. I think I'm more on the Title just because of the finish odds. Like I said in that first one, I don't know. Christian Rodriguez minus 250. They're both like similar price dogs too, where I don't know. I tend to go towards the finish odds in the dog, just whether that's right or wrong. Obviously, they could get starched. You could also build. I mean, if you did, I think in like cash, What do they do in cash title? Like it feels like they always like the main event dog, where maybe they play the top two and then the main event dog, which I don't like that as much. I don't know, just because I feel like the main event dog always ends up too high owned. Where like if Johnny Walker's like 30 or 40%, which I think it's 7,200, he should be. I mean, that's just too high for a guy that is probably going to lose to me, unless you just go way overweight and fade Hill.
The one of the funny things about UFC MMA is, I don't know about you guys, but I get like kind of like stressed, especially watching the fighters that I faded, right? Like because like I don't play 150 lineups, usually put in like 10 or so in these, and sometimes you don't have any of a fighter, and you can just be drawn dead after one fight if they put up like a 120 or 130, and they're in the optimal, and it's just like, okay.
MMA is really tough.
Really, you can't ship the optimal for sure once the dude puts it up
it's there. Like that can't happen really in any other sport, right? I mean, we're like just from fading somebody, right? Like baseball, you hit a home run first at bat, okay, sucks you don't have them, but whatever, it's not the end of the world. Same with basketball. Like the biggest single play in basketball is like a 3-pointer, right?
Unless you're Luka last night, where if you didn't have Luka, you're not.
No matter what, you're still not like actually physically dead. Like you can maybe build a team that beats Luka, probably not, but point being, you're not 100% dead like in the MMA.
For sure.
That's what's fun too, though, right? Like if you fade a fight and it just sucks, you feel great because all that ownership is dead. It's why I love MMA because of that.
But there's also like you get like the build, right? If you like nail like 3 optimal fighters, like 3 out of the first 5, you get to the main card and like, man, you're like got a real sweat going on. That's an awesome time. We've all been there a few times for sure.
There's nothing worse than that night where we had the dead nut going into what's the chick that's just owned everybody.
There was Nunez, and then there was the
we had just the dead nut with Nunez, and then she loses.
What was she like, minus 900 or something?
There was someone in the suite that was at DK with me last week. He said he had 1.5 million if Nunez won that fight. He had every single fight right, and he got it right. And last week he had Derek Lewis. If Derek Lewis won last week, $250,000. He had over a 10-fight parlay, like by decision, this stuff. He needed Derek Lewis.
Dirty.
Hopefully he got at least a little hedge in on those.
No, he couldn't. He was sitting by us. We were like, he couldn't find a way. He said, or he's like, Derek Lewis was going to win. He had no hedge.
That's where you got to hedge some. Like
it was brutal. I felt
you have to hedge.
What's the hedge? Is jumping off a building.
His girl was about to. I felt his girl was like in shock, and I was like, oh.
I mean, how can you really be that shocked with those two? I love Derek Lewis as much as anyone, but how can you be that shocked if the dude knocks him out?
Well,
like you can't be that. Like Nunez, sure, you can be pretty shocked about that.
Yeah.
Well, Nunez, I mean, that one seems like the hedge one because you don't even have to put down that much money on the plus 700.
It sounds easy now, but like
just never expect
in the time. I mean, I had the dead nut, and I didn't even think about hedging. I'm like, you just feel like you got the winner.
This maybe sounds bad, but I love betting against the women fighters that like just had a baby and like took some time off and like come back. It's like, okay,
it's the truth. She wasn't motivated. It wasn't even fluky. She lost. Like she legitimately lost. It was not fluky at all.
No,
but we see those giant flukes seem to come to me more on the huge women's fighters. Like I mean, even back in the day, Ronda Rousey, right? It's like, oh, she's invincible. She could never lose. And then she gets starched, right? Just straight up beat by who was it? Holly Holm, I think was the first one to take her out. So good stuff there. We'll keep it moving. Next fight on the card again, 2 smaller fighters, 135, Chad and Heliger. Probably mispronouncing that title. You can
good.
And Heliger. All right, we'll go with that. And Jesse Strader. Closer fight than the other two, but still a little bit of a lopsided line. And Heliger coming in minus 250 to minus 270 right now. Strader was very, very active in his loss to Jackson. 7 strikes per minute landed, and Heliger not so much, but he is the favorite here. This one looks like it could potentially stay on the feet, and I think potentially could be a fight where even if you have the winner, you're not necessarily super satisfied with the score. Although it is favored to finish inside the distance, minus 200 or so, something like that. So Title will go to you first again, and Heliger, Strader, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, so this is our first non-pay-per-view show. A lot of pay-per-view shows, like you recognize almost every fighter top to bottom. This is a 35-year-old Heliger making his UFC debut. Like he started off his pro career with the 2-5 record. He's rattled off 9 consecutive wins. But like these guys are two like very low level guys that are going to go out there. I expect it to be on the feet. Expect them to both be swinging. Strader likes to walk forward. He fought Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson's a problem. He's going to be a top 15 guy sooner rather than later. So there's nothing wrong with losing to Montel Jackson. He got knocked down multiple times, but he showed his toughness in that fight too. I don't know, like Strader's going to walk forward, and Heliger, should he be a -250 favorite? Absolutely not. A 35-year-old making his UFC debut. The reason he got a contract, he was a massive dog. He was like a +300 dog in the Contender Series fight. Won a really, really close split decision. I mean, I don't know, but as a +300 dog against a pretty good fighter, Dana White was like, yeah, you deserve a contract. This guy's nothing special at all, but Strader is nothing special either. Strader's going to push forward. He likes to throw. He throws hard, walks forward. He can easily get caught by Heliger, who I think is the better technical striker. But these are just like two guys. Like I'm going to have Strader at 7,100 because there's no way this Heliger guy should be -250, and he's not very good. So give me some Strader. But look at Heliger. I think he's going to go a little overlooked too because we're looking at it. Jonathan Pierce, Jamal Hill, Kyle Dawkins, who's a big name on this card. There's Parker Porter. There's a good amount of guys in the upper tier that are going to get ownership. And people are going to be like, who is this Heliger guy? I've never heard of him and stuff. And he's -105 to end inside the distance because Strader, he just walks forward relentless, or like he just does not care about himself. So yeah, this fight could easily finish in the first round. He doesn't. He really does not care about himself. It's kind of fun to watch, and why this fight could be a lot of fun to watch, but also very sloppy. Low-level fights. These guys, these can break the slate as we've seen. I expect it to be on the feet, so you do want that first round or second round knockout. If it gets out of the second round, you're probably not going to be on the optimal. I'll have some in Heliger. I play 152. I play 20. He's -105. I think the ownership will be kind of low, but Jesse Strader at 7,100. He's not very good, but he's fighting a 35-year-old making his UFC debut. You need dogs on this card. I think he's a very live dog. So I'll probably have more of him than Heliger just with how the pricing works. It's going to be a low-level fight.
What's interesting between these first three fights that we've talked about, they basically have the same favorite versus underdog DraftKings spread, right? 91, 92, 9,300 for these guys. And then the underdogs are 7,100, 7K, and 6,900. Odds are fairly similar. So it is kind of a big decision on these first three fights where you go with these favorites, because you do have some big favorites. And then you got to pick out the dog. Title, sounds like Strader is maybe your favorite underdog among the first three fights that we've talked about here. Yes.
Strader. I'd go Strader Rodriguez is how I rank them.
Yeah, I have it Strader Perrin. So I'm in on Strader as well, just because I just don't see Heliger. The line seems unjustified to me, frankly.
You start 2-5 as a pro and you're making your UFC debut at 35 and you're a +300 dog in Contender Series. Like, how are you just now a -250 favorite? And you fought a guy that's going to be a top 15. Like, Montel Jackson's a stud. So like that's who Strader fought. Like that's better than anybody in Heliger. So this line is, if you bet -250 in Heliger, you should quit gambling. This line, that is not what you should do.
Well, Big T wants to talk. Big T's about to tell us he's going to bet that line. So go ahead.
No, I mean, this is just an example where you guys keep talking, and the more you talk, the more I'm like, man, hey, this dude's going to kill him, isn't he? Because you guys are all selling the point, but the line is the line. Like the line, these guys know the dudes that make the lines know all the stuff we're saying, and it does make me, I'm not gonna lie, it does make me want to play the favorite more because the line doesn't seem to make sense. The dude's old.
You're gonna say this.
Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just you guys were spelling it out for me. Like this is why
he opened at -300, I will say, and there's been steam on Strader, rightfully so. But
and just to explain the thinking though, like common sense for sure agrees with like the dog versus 35-year-old. They're strikers. I mean, everything about it makes sense. But I mean, the dude is still -250 for a reason, and this is why I love watching the shows, even when I'm not on, because obviously I'm no MMA expert. I like listening to them more than that, but I'd be sitting at my desk right now, like taking a note to definitely get overexposed to the favorite here, just because I mean the other dude has to suck too. I mean, minus 250 to a 35-year-old making his debut, plus 300. I mean, I heard everything you guys said. It's just tough. I mean, on this card too, another thing everyone does in MMA is they play both sides of so many fights. And I mean, so we talked about the other three. I didn't even know this one was in that same range, like DC said. First three fights, boom, 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 similar odds, similar everything. The main event in that same bucket, and Title said one more, which I don't know.
Pretty much two are 8,900 and 8,800, -290, -265. So there's a lot of fights like that.
So you got to find a dog somewhere. I mean, so I don't know who they'll end up taking, but I could see with the line move, them getting on Strader here. Just you got to decide your dogs. I think I still like that second dog the most, that Rodriguez, just with the big finish odds, but obviously much bigger favorite to Pierce. Pierce is much more quality too than Heliger or whatever this dude's name is. But I don't know. I'll be a little lower on this fight probably than the first two.
Big T, you said you like to watch the show sometimes and take some notes. Do you take more notes during a show, a Run Pure Sports show, or did you do in high school history class?
You already know the answer to this. Like, I was not a good student.
I was never a note taker. I was like,
way more notes.
Whatever goes in my brain, I'll use that. But I'm not.
I'm not right. You guys didn't have the luxury to have the computers in front of you, so you can mess around all day.
I didn't even have a phone till the very end of high school, and it wasn't like phones like now.
No, I didn't have a phone ever in high school. Most of us didn't where we were from, but different era for sure. But that's in Heliger and Strader. Let's get to a women's fight here. I kind of anticipate this one being a little bit boring. 115 bout between Diana Balbita and Gloria de Paula. It is. Actually, this one pretty much a pick 'em, pretty close to it anyway. Balbita a slight favorite. I don't know. I don't really expect a lot of fireworks here. Title. I don't have a strong take on this fight, frankly. So I'm hoping you do. Talk to me about these two women.
Yeah, I mean, how do you have a strong take on this fight? The first thing I'll say, well, first of all, I think it's a loser leaves town fight, as I said in the playbook. Like. That's
like 10 of these fights though.
Yeah. I mean, 1-2 for Balbita, 0-2 for Gloria de Paula. I will say though, the biggest thing to highlight on this card is somehow Balbita opened up as a -260 favorite, and now it's -120, 100.
Yeah,
it was a pick 'em. So
I always wonder that though. Like, you saw it physically on DK with that line, or is it like on some other site that said it was up? DK
you
saw it though with your own eye. You saw -260. That's crazy.
Title, you use best fight odds?
Yeah, go to best fight odds all the way to the right.
I understand that. I wanted to know if you saw, because sometimes I feel like those numbers are like literally like opens and somebody bets it and it moves a ton.
No, that's what it is. They're offshore books. Like DraftKings will open. There's not like US books open the DraftKings, FanDuel, all that. They open these lines way after, when they already see kind of where the lines are settling from offshore. So you're right. Like, someone makes a big bet.
A line move that big is insane to me.
No, you're 100. That's what it is. It's an offshore. Someone
probably just hung a bad line and got pounded right away. And then
that's what
exactly.
I used to bet a lot of.
Noting. It really is.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. That's where they thought it should be. And it got pounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
DC, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen so much anymore. I used to bet a lot of UFC like 6-7 years ago, offshore books, obviously, and they would hang just horrible lines all the time. We would be ready for them. Me and my partner, where we're like, we would study like with the actual like DVDs were like the way to watch the fights. I had like UFC like 60 through like 130 on DVD, and we would watch all the fights. And then as soon as the lines hit, we would hit them. And usually it would be like almost
there had
always
to
on
be
the right
huge
side.
edge, especially before COVID, like before a lot of people started watching.
No, this was way back in the day, but they still do occasionally, and this could be an occasion, one of those one of those times. So, Title, how do you interpret that the line got bet down that far? Does that influence your decision making here much?
And I just interpreted like I'm not going to say bums. And obviously when I say bums, I'm talking UFC level. Like, yes, these girls will probably beat my ass. Like bums meaning UFC in their division. It just, there's no way this either should be a -260. I think Balbita's maybe.
I think I can win a fight against these girls.
Maybe you can. I'm not going to go to my. I'm not going to go on a limit.
115-pound chicks.
Hey,
Big T. If would you still be on Randone's side if me and him threw down?
Right now, when you're in this shape, I don't know if I was ever on his side anyways.
Yeah, like, you were. You were like the catalyst. You're constantly texting me trying to get the fight.
Yeah, well, that's because I wanted to see the fight happen. What do you mean? That doesn't mean I was actually like. I definitely wouldn't be now because you're in good shape for sure now.
Yeah, but back to this one. Like, you asked, do I have a strong lean and stuff? No, I mean, I don't know how you could. I just take the line being like the line was just completely wrong. Like, it's a low-level woman's fight. Yeah. It's way more of a coin flip. So I lean Balbita. This is a fight I don't. And I'm curious about Big T because this is a Big T fight because the +165, it's the most likely to go to decision. The thing is, I think this fight stays on the feet, which is why I don't have interest. Balbita, so Gloria de Paula, she was controlled for over 9 minutes, 2 fights going against Jin Yu Frey. But Balbita doesn't shoot for a lot of takedowns. She's had 1 takedown in 2 of her 3 fights, but she just doesn't shoot a lot. If I knew she would come in and try and shoot, she could have success laying on her. And then those are fights you do want. So if I play anyone, it would be her because I think she has upside if she does something, if she uses her wrestling, which she doesn't really do though. I think she probably has the better striking exchanges, throws a little more volume. But man, like there's good fights in this range that we're going to get to in the mid-range that are supposed to finish. That should be a lot of fun. This is one of the worst fights on the card. Go get some food, go to the bathroom. I don't really like this fight, but I want to hear what Big T is going to say because this is a Big T fight. I have gotten better. Big T's taught me a little bit and it's helped, but I just can't get behind this one because you got to fade fights too. Like you just can't play everything. And I just can't make a case for this one.
Thoughts, Big T? Anything to
add? I mean, these are not Big T fights. That's where he's wrong.
Yes, like it is. This is a
no. Big T I like fight. The chick fights like this with 165, where one of them is better though. Like I like it when it's like a -220 favorite in a +165, and she's like 86.
We'll get to one later. Then you might like.
I just don't. I don't like it when it's like a coin flip because then I have to choose which one. And this is like the one where I just under project both. Like I'll project both these chicks for like 60 or something, and then if they hit my builds, which they won't very often, hardly ever, like I'll end up with like 5 to 10% of probably both these chicks literally just as fillers. I want as little as possible of this fight though.
Yeah.
So I agree with why Big T what you're saying, because you have to parlay the winner with the big score to then be on the like your parlay.
I need to at least have usually when I like it the most, just because I'm finally on the MMA show, is when one of them like gets a ton of like takedowns or has upside for takedowns. Yeah. DC said these are strikers. Two pillow fighter, freaking 115 strikers, where neither one is that big of a favorite. These are the ones I try to like.
And they're not even cheap. I mean, 8,200 for Balbita, 8K for Paula.
It's all the algorithm with
so many times though. Like you fall where your last fighter's like in this range where I don't know. It's probably better just to fully fade it. Honestly,
I think so.
If they win and get you like 70, like you're still not gonna ship with that at 8K.
Especially with so many cheaper fighters. Like even if they have a good score, they might not get there if some favorites have big scores and then one underdog gets there. So you kind of need like it's almost like a 3-leg parlay because you need the winner, you need a decent score out of the winner, and then also because they're more expensive than the cheaper guys, you need none of the cheaper guys can absolutely go crazy, or else they could knock out these mid-range fighters.
One of these cheap dogs we've talked about is going to outscore.
That's what I'm saying.
Too,
I'll take a shot on any of the cheap dogs, any of the 3 previous cheap dogs that we talked about over both Balbita and De Paula.
I usually don't, at least I haven't. I just haven't fully faded any fights. Like that's one thing I don't think I know everyone usually. I'll just get a little bit of them just in case. Like I'll pick a
surprised
side.
to hear that. That is not a big.
Well, I fade like a lot. I fade more like fighters than anyone. So I like to just pick my side in most fights and then fade the other side. So I don't end up with as many combos. But I never like full fade fights just in case like something happens where I don't know. I just like to pick the winners. I'm not saying it's right.
I might have to
wrong.
bring back my hashtag for this one: ban chick fights for
this is an example of that for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
Maybe I'll get
I agree with you guys. Like, I mean, how does one of these chicks end on the winner? Like they'd have to just somehow knock the other out.
It would like we've seen De Paula control for over 9 minutes, one fight, and that's like if Balbita does it, but she just doesn't go for too many takedowns. But like you never know what these people are training. That's the only path I see is, I mean, you see someone's been controlled for 9 minutes, they have nothing to offer off their back. You somehow try and shoot for a takedown, you have success round one. That's the only thing is the top control in the boring game like that. But I think more than likely it stays on the feet, and you're not winning on the feet. No one's getting knocked out. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I'm with you. We'll move it on to the next fight. Chaz Skelly versus Mark Striegel. Skelly, UFC veteran, but hasn't fought in, I think, in the UFC in 3 years now.
Over like 2 years, 4 months, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But interestingly, both these fighters have the exact same record, 18-3 with 1 no contest. They're older fighters. Skelly, I think, coming in at 36, Striegel at 33. Skelly really, really low output. He likes to wrestle, but he's not particularly great at it. When you look at the numbers, 34% takedown percentage, 2 strikes per minute, which is super, super low. You look at, Skelly's scores on DraftKings, like they didn't even have the scoring back when he fought, but just even in his wins, he's getting there very rarely. Title, it's hard to know what to we just haven't seen Skelly in so long. It's hard to know exactly how he's going to be. I haven't seen the weigh-in photos yet. This was one that I would kind of want to see, get some idea maybe what kind of shape he's in. But he is a big favorite or decent favorite here, minus 200 on most books. Again, another fight where I just looking at the numbers and Skelly, it's not particularly cheap. He's 8,700. I can't really see playing him myself, right? Like these are smaller fighters. Again, I assume this fight is favored to go the distance.
Not.
It isn't. Okay. That's a little surprising to me, but in any case, this is another fight that frankly I don't love. So talk to me about Skelly and Striegel here.
I mean, there's a lot of red flag, like you said with Skelly. I hate 36 years old. I hate seeing the age get up there. Also, he hasn't fought 2019, 2 years, 4 months. And he also said this is his retirement fight, which I never like to hear before a fight.
I always bet against the retirement fighters. They always
which one of these dudes said it's a retirement fight?
Chaz Skelly.
I gotta write that down. That's a big T note taker right there.
Yeah, that's a definite note taker there. You go to the notebook when you hear that.
Yeah, I think he said this like months ago too. Like last year, he said this was retired. And like, yeah, so there's so many red flags. Like how would
the 8,700 dude said this?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and like,
he sucks. Skelly's bad, man. Like
the man can grapple. So I also will say, like your DC, you're talking about like how he doesn't score well and all this stuff. So the scoring, like the top control was added pretty recently in UFC, which this is like a fight where if this wasn't a top control fight where they had that, it'd be a really easy fade. But because of the top control, like both these guys want to get on the mat. Chaz Skelly's a grappler, and he's he was a really good grappler. Like the man is really slick on the mat. He only has a 33% takedown defense, but that's because he invites people to take him down because the striking's so bad, and he feels really good on the mat. Striegel, he's also a guy that wants to get on the mat. He also is a grappler. He has good takedowns, so I think he can have success easily with the takedowns. It'll just be interesting because when you get two grapplers going at it like these two, sometimes we see it where they just are both scared to engage, and it's the most boring kickboxing fight of all time. We've seen that happen, which I'm a little nervous about. If Striegel takes him down, which I think he can, I think Skelly's a better grappler, but that's like what I'm looking at tape for 3 years ago, 4 years ago from this man. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many unknowns. You look at the pricing then, exactly. 7,500 Mark Striegel. That's a dog that you can definitely get me intrigued with. A lot of you can get takedowns anytime he wants it. He can get top control. He does have to stay safe on top though, because I can't just say Skelly's a bum grappler now. Like he's been a really good grappler. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing with Big T though. I mean, this fight's what, -150 to end inside the distance, 8,700 for Skelly. Who's going to play Skelly over when you can pay 100 more for a dog? Yeah. 100 more for Dawkins, 300 more for Jamal Hill and stuff like that. So if you're a game theory, this fight's supposed to end inside the distance. We expect them to be on the mat majority of the time, which we know the winner will score well. If that is the case, the winner is going to probably score well in this fight. Now, somehow, if they're both scared, it's a kickboxing fight. It's going to be the most boring fight you've ever seen. But how do we predict that when over half of both these guys' wins are by submission? They're both grapplers. So I think it's going to be on the mat. Too many red flags for Skelly. You can never bet him at -200. 7,500 on a card. We don't love too many dogs. And I don't think Striegel is going to be like 30% owned or anything like that. I think the dogs are kind of spread out outside of the main event. So yeah, I lean Striegel, but no, if people aren't going to play Skelly, I'll have some because the dude can. He definitely is a grappler. He can lock up a submission, and Striegel leaves his head out there to be taken. When he does go for the takedowns, he does not have the best form and is defensive. Skelly, he finds a neck early. It could be a big one, but yeah, two grapplers should be on the mat a lot and should score well.
That's the advantage of playing 150. You can play a bum like Chaz Skelly at 8,700.
That's why I
get
love
every
it.
combination and you can't lose. That's
MMA's my favorite for 150.
Oh.
Trust me, you can lose. When I try to play 150.
Oh, you can lose all right.
Yeah, that's my favorite on Twitter. Even more so in MMA. You can get every combo.
Yeah,
you only need 150.
And you run the math, and there's like 7 billion combos. So
Especially when there's all these big upside guys in the 9Ks too. God.
As a guy that does a 150, I will not have any Chaz Skelly. Listen, I do like Striegel here though. Like this could be a fight, and this is one of the fun things about UFC, about MMA. After the fight, sometimes you're like, man, that line was just like legitimately way off, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't happen in a basketball game where it's like, no, this team was -300 and it should have been completely reversed. That does happen in MMA
all the time.
And it's not, sometimes it's a fluky punch, but sometimes it's like, no, they were going to beat that. Like this fight could end and you would be like, if they fought again next time, Striegel would be -300 or whatever.
Easily,
so that wouldn't shock me at all. And that means for me that I'll take a shot on the $7,500 dog here. I think he's very, very live. I don't know who's the better fighter among these two. I don't think either guy's super great, but I mean, I'm happy to bet against Chaz Skelly when he's the favorite. So that's how I'm taking it. Big T, your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm going with Striegel. I'm not playing Skelly. Skelly's terrible. Retirement. Yeah. Yep. This is the first one I got a circle in my notes. Striegel's gonna. Yeah, I'm playing him for sure. 7,500. I like that a lot.
I'll be riding the Striegel train right with you. So we'll keep it moving.
That's how you narrow it down too. By the way, like everyone making we make the 150 jokes too, but like you can't play everyone. Like I always just get rid of dudes like Skelly. Like if he beats me, I mean, so be it. You just can't cover every angle. So 35, 37, whatever you said he was, get him out of there.
Last event I ended up fading the Adesanya Whitaker fight in all 150 lineups.
That was a good move.
Well, I needed a 1v1. Casey O'Neill, I had Phillips. I would have had the unique shit. Like things like that. Like you have to make big stands. Even in 150, like you can't play everyone. So
moves like that are huge though, like you did, because both of them, for a fact, are going to be
really high on.
I mean, what were they combined? 70-80% probably, or close to it. Literally when that fight doesn't hit the optimal, you are down to only have to beat 20% of the field. As far as shipping, obviously cashing is a whole different.
We only care about shipping.
Yeah,
if you play
exactly.
MMA, you should any DFS sport with how top heavy payouts are, especially MMA with how many splits there, you just play for first place, which is why we say you can be dead from the optimal after the first fight. And that's
when you start rooting just for cash when you can't hit the optimal, then you're back to just trying to cash.
or making parlays to give yourself another shot at the score.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, MMA, the big field MMA, like the whatever it is, 15 or 10 or $20 on DraftKings, it's kind of more like a showdown mentality, right? Big T, where you're trying to, you're probably gonna chop if you get first, but you're trying to chop with as few people as possible. You can do that by playing contrarian fighters. You can do that by leaving money on the table.
Even more so, I'd say than showdown. Like, it's nearly impossible if you use between, like, I'd say 500 to all the salary left. It's nearly impossible to be unique. Like in MMA,
I had it last week. I needed it.
Yeah, but you didn't have it because you needed the other combo. So you probably had to like leave more salary or something.
I would have had to leave 100 more, but there was only 2 ship. I mean, it depends.
How much salary was it though?
49.8 only had 2 splits. Mine was 49.7 would have been one.
You could have left only 2 or 3. I don't. Since we've started, I just haven't seen it that much. The only time we've seen it really, and I've only played 2 years since COVID, but is when someone leaves a bunch of salary and there's like a bunch of dogs that hit. Anyway, I'm sure it could happen. The point being was, it's very hard unless like showdown. You can do it any slate, I think, just by playing a random dude. In MMA, you almost have to just set rules with your salary and leave 1,000 or something or more to give yourself a better chance. I'm not saying to do that because that probably isn't going to work most of the time.
You'll burn money more than you won't. But when you win,
you at least have a chance to do it if you did that.
For sure.
Yeah, that'll do it for Skelly and Striegel. Long show today, but that's all right. We got nothing better to do with no sports coming up. So we'll go to the next fight. Another women's fight here, although one that is actually expected to finish inside the distance. You don't see that with the women's fights very often, but this one under 2.5 rounds. I'm seeing plus, or no, never mind. I had that wrong, didn't I?
I was going to say, what did I mess up?
No, that makes a lot more sense because I didn't think that, and then I was looking it up, but no, I have it wrong. This one is favored to go the distance. My bad. There, Jessica Rose Clark, Stephanie Egger. Rose Clark coming in minus 180-ish at the moment. In terms of their recent results, both coming off wins. I guess both these fighters do like to wrestle a little bit. To me, a little bit of a standard kind of boring women's fight here where maybe there's a couple takedowns mixed in. They can probably honestly both stand in the pocket without too much risk of a knockdown or a knockout. I don't know. A lot of these fights, it's hard to break them down when neither fighter has like the power to finish the fight. I mean, what are you really like? These fights seem oftentimes like kind of like sparring matches, right? Like, and it's just is what it is. Tuttle, you have a strong take on this one. I don't really. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, this is similar to the other women's fight. Like that's why I say we usually talk about pay-per-view fights on a card like this. This card isn't very good. I mean, there's just no other way around it. There's a lot of money to be made. There's fights on the screen, so I'll always be happy. But like breaking down this fight, I mean, pretty low level MMA. Rose Clark has actually looked decent her last 2 fights. She came in with a wrestling. She put on her wrestling shoes last fight against Jocelyn Edwards. But that's because she had to. Jocelyn Edwards was way better on the feet, was piecing her up. But Rose Clark, 5 takedowns, had 11 minutes of control time. Egger's 1-1 in the UFC, her debut against Tracy Cortez. She got taken down. She got controlled in that fight. After her next fight, Shanna Young, she did win by 2nd round KO. Egger has a 4-inch reach advantage. She's a black belt in judo. But so she's better on the mat. But Rose Clark, I think she knows that, and I don't think she's going to put on her wrestling shoes. If she's smart, Rose Clark's going to keep this fight on the feet, even though she has wrestled in her past fights. Rose Clark has the advantage on the feet, though. Egger is not. I mean, you talk about pillow fights and throwing pillow hands. I mean, she has no power, Egger does, behind her strike. She has a reach advantage and stuff, but I think Clark can easily get the better of the exchanges. And where Egger is live is she's okay on the mat. She's fine. She's long. So why would Clark take her down and have Egger be live for a submission or something there when she can just have success on the feet and have a 15-minute decision? So I'm expecting Rose Clark is you love seeing fighters coming in with a game plan that we expect them to have because that's her best path to victory. That's what she's done recently. I'm expecting her to come in, show that she can still strike. She's a better striker than Egger. Egger's live if it hits the mat, but I think Clark just outboxes her for 15 minutes. Yeah, maybe Clark mixes in a takedown or 2 since we have seen it in her last fights, but it's a boring fight.
Yeah.
I think Rose Clark by decision. But hey, this is a fight I'm interested. Big T, we're talking. Rose Clark is minus 180, so she's not minus 220 or stuff. It's plus 130 to end inside the distance, which isn't, I mean, that's pretty much a coin flip. Plus 250 to end inside the distance for Clark. So I'm curious if this is one of those Big T fights, but personally, I think it's going to be on the feet. We have seen Clark wrestle though, so that's what Big T likes to see.
We'll throw it to T here in a minute. I will say Clark, you know, we've talked about the control time, takedowns can lead to big scores. In her last fight, 3-round decision win, she had 5 takedowns in 12 minutes and 40 seconds of control time. So that's all but what, 2 minutes and 20 seconds. She's getting credit for the control time.
She was getting pieced up when she wasn't on the mat.
She landed a total of 18 significant strikes despite being in control for nearly 13 minutes. That's a concern to me, right? Where it's like, I mean, that's kind of what you want, but she just didn't do anything, even when she did have the control. So I do worry that, you know, even if things go her way, if it's a fight like that again, you know, she scored 90 fantasy points, probably not going to be enough at 8,600. That's a concern for me. And then obviously you have the chance that it doesn't go your way at all to begin with. So another fight that I'm kind of leaning toward fading, but interested to hear your thoughts, T.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those fights that sticks out a little bit to me, just because the scoring, like you guys said.
Yeah.
I mean, Heliger 7,600. She scored 104 last time. I know that sometimes it helps me to not know as much about the stuff, honestly, because I can look at it just simpler. Like, she's a plus 150 dog, which isn't bad. Plus 130 to finish inside the distance, which isn't bad. She scored 104 last time, which obviously is pretty good at 7,600.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, I'm sure she sucks. I'm not saying she doesn't, but we need dogs somewhere. 7,600 plus 150 plus 130. She kind of checks a lot of the boxes just to gamble on a dog for me. I'm not going to like put her as like a 60% owned play or something, but I can play like 30%, 20, 30% Heliger, be above the field more than likely, and just take my chances. I will fade probably this Rose Clark. I just think, I don't know. She doesn't look very, I was looking before DC even said it, where she controlled for 12 minutes, 5 takedowns, still only scored 90 points.
It's got to be some sort of record.
I mean, that has to be, it literally has to be like 18 significant strikes when you're laying on the person for 12. I don't know if it was laying, but controlling for 12 minutes. I mean, that is insane. 18 strikes. So yeah, I'm going to take a chance with the dog.
Come on, refs, stand them up at that point.
Yeah.
We don't need the lay and pray here.
I mean, 90 points on you. That's insane.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
Not
Give
great.
me the dog, Heliger.
I'm with you. Heliger or pass for me.
Yeah.
Let's get to some better fights. I actually think, we kind of talking shit about this.
Hopefully there's no more chick fights. Is this the only ones?
It was just those two.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
And honestly, I think the final 6 fight, the main card looks pretty good. I think this fight looks interesting as well. David Onama against, is it Gabriel?
Gabriel Benitez. This is the boy, Big T.
Keep saying Tony, yes?
No, this is Onama. Oh. This is the guy. So Onama, he fought, yeah, I mean, he made his UFC debut up a weight class against Mason Jones, who's a stud. This is where we were watching it. Big T, and he was piecing him up on the feet a little bit. He had his moments. You got to remember this, Big T.
I got to pull it up, I guess. Who was he fighting?
We were in Discord. David Onama is fighting Gabriel Benitez on this card, but he got the call on short notice. And it was, I mean, there's not too many fights that you put, I put a lot of stock into a loss. But man, David Onama, short notice, up a weight class against Mason Jones, who's a really, really tough fighter. And he had a really close fight, a really, really good performance. He was controlled for a little while. Mason Jones was the way bigger fighter for sure. But Onama showed a lot of promise. And this guy came in, I mean, I had a good amount of him on that fight. He was like a plus 300 dog or something. In this fight alone, he opened up as a plus 105 dog. He's now sitting at minus 160 in some books. This guy's, I mean, he can strike. He has a ton of power. He showed very good durability. The cardio was way better than I thought last fight. And he just had this a tough match as you can have in a UFC debut. Now he's finally in his weight class. Now he finally has a full training camp. and Dana White showing that he thinks this guy is something, because Gabriel Benitez is a UFC vet. He's been in the UFC for a while. Very, very good calf kicker, mixes up to the body well, throws some very, very, very nasty kicks. He had a tough fight last time against Billy Q. Billy Q just usually is a slow starter. He came out from round 1 and just dominated that fight, eventually got a 3rd round finish. And that's a little worry for me. I like Mobley Benitez. I love his kicks. I love calf kickers. He throws nasty ones.
Title. Who gets more excited about a calf kick? You or Joe Rogan?
Yes, calf kick, man. You know, when that calf's gone, it's over. The fight is over. Like it's the cheapest thing.
That doesn't happen that often, though. Usually, it's like, oh, it's gonna wear him down. He's gonna be slowing down. It's like,
no, you can tell when the calf kicks starting to
I'm a fan of the kicks, just because that would be, you know, a former soccer player, that would be what I personally would utilize as my best strike. But I think I don't know.
We can agree to disagree on that one. You will not find someone that likes the calf kicks as much as I do. Yeah. Hopefully Big T's finding out who this guy is, but man, I'm just really
I'm struggling to find the video of it though. Usually I can find the fight pretty easy. I can't find it. Where do I look?
You were literally in Discord like, man, this guy.
I know. I see the dude. I remember him. I just can't remember the freaking fight.
You're a young man. You got a better memory than me and
well, Big T also plays like a million different sports on a Saturday.
I honestly have trouble like recalling like what happens in games. Like, because you just got to move on to the next day, and I don't have time to like.
Well,
I've been telling myself I'm going to do a sheet too since the beginning of COVID, where like after the MMA, I take like literally 10 minutes and just write like what I think of each fighter, and then but I just still haven't done it like a donkey.
I always tell myself that I should be like taking notes while I watch these fights, but then it's like,
you don't want
I'm fucking lazy, so I don't.
You probably have a beer in both hands. You don't have any hands to write some notes.
No,
but
maybe next card.
Always next card for sure.
I will say this probably won't be the card where I start diligently taking notes. I'll go that far. But listen, Title, it sounds like you're very, very high on Onama.
I am. And Benitez missed weight too. Benitez was the one that did miss weight, which
what did you say, by 3.5 pounds at 145?
Yeah.
What weight are these dudes at?
What weight? 145.
That's gotta suck so bad when you like try to do a weight cut and don't make it, and then you got to give up 30% of your purse before the fight even begins.
Just because they tried, like it.
And they're not even getting paid that much anyway. No. These guys probably make what, like 10 or 15K for the fight or something.
And he's an underdog. Like he's supposed to go out there and get.
I still don't get how they don't get more money. That's like the most shocking thing about the UFC to me. Like, how are these dudes getting in that ring and fighting for 10K? Like,
I
feel like I would make more money fighting the siege than these guys make fighting in the goddamn.
Easily would make more fighting the siege. Like, I don't get it.
Well, Jake Paul's. Is it Jake Paul or Logan Paul? I get mixed up.
It's Jake.
Yeah, making a case, and I'm sure tilting the shit out of Dana White, right?
Dana's had rent free. Dana hates that, man.
There's nothing he can do about it either. Is the funny part?
Jake's platform's way too big. There's no censor in that.
He basically just has to kind of ignore him, right? Is the only thing you can do.
But David Onama all day for me though. It's a good fight. I think it's a good one to target. Like minus 200 and inside the distance. If Benitez wins, I think it's going to be like a first round knockout or like body kick that absolutely destroys his liver. The leg kicks add up. At range, Benitez is very live. I just think Onama closed the distance. I think he can find the takedowns too, find control time. We saw Billy Q have success with that. I'm really high on Onama.
He's the type of guy you want to bet on, right? 8-0 coming into the UFC debut, performs well, lands 90 significant strikes, but loses a tough fight.
It was one of the fight of the year candidates. Like BT, I gotta send you the link. You will remember right.
I can't believe I can't find it.
I'm tilted. You don't remember this fight.
I texted him a couple of days ago too, telling him about this guy. I'm tilted.
All right. Well, listen, title. It sounds like you're kind of, I wouldn't say all in, but very high on Onama here. I'll join you. I'm not gonna fade the title conviction play on Onama. I mean, you kind of spelled it out better than I could. Big T, thoughts? I know you couldn't find the video, but
I'm with him. Like I don't like Benitez either. I do know that. I was looking at some of his old fights. I don't like him. I remember that James fight where he won, and like people thought he looked good. Like
James was bad though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I wasn't even that impressed. Like he scored 115, and that was his only win really in the last couple of years. So I don't like him. I don't remember Onama, but if Title says I liked him, then I'm on board with you guys. I think I'm gonna jam him at this price. If he sends me the link, I'm gonna be all in. But
Yeah,
I gotta,
yeah.
I thought I always went to ESPN Plus and all the fights were there. It's not on there.
No, I'm gonna send you. I mean, this link. I couldn't find the full fight. This link will.
I don't need the full fight. I just want to see them in the ring. I'll remember it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'll send you in Discord right now.
James
was the fighter that bet 20K on himself in a loser go home
fight. No, I remember that fight.
I have a soft spot for Justin James because he fought in the COVID times when UFC was the only thing, and I was pretty big on him in that fight. I think he got a first round knockout as a big underdog.
Oh yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, that was when he took it on like a day's notice.
Yeah,
it's like a plus 400 dog. I forget. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Good battle. Good battle with Mad Lab. I think I had on that one. That was feels like a million years ago at this point, but good stuff there. 3 for 3 on Onama. Let's get to the main card, and I think what could be a spectacular fight, spectacular finish between Joaquin Buckley and Razak Alhassan, two guys who like to throw. Buckley, if you remember, I mean, he had one of the best knockouts in UFC history, right? With that, just a devastating. Was that his UFC debut? I think it was.
Might have been. That was the best knockout in UFC history, though. I'll go to my grave with that one, man.
Yeah, just incredible. I will say, beyond that, Buckley has not really looked that great to me. He's been hesitant. He's obviously got tremendous power, athleticism, but I think he's a little bit raw, just in terms of the technicality of it all, I guess, if you want to call it that. I think he's a small favorite here.
Minus 165, 145.
Minus 165. This fight, I believe, is big favorite to not go to decision. Goes to decision is like plus 240 or something like that. So yeah, minus 300 does not go to decision. This one should finish inside the distance. And it's going to be a lot of striking, though, right? I don't think you'll see takedown attempts in this one. It should stay on the feet, which makes for a fun fight. But we've talked about on a fight that stays on the feet, you kind of need a finish to oftentimes get to the optimal in terms of DFS. So Buckley 8,300, Razak Alhassan 7,900. I'll go first. I think Alhassan pulls the upset here. I think he's actually the better fighter. I think Buckley, because he's got, again, probably the most spectacular knockout in UFC history, I think he's a little bit overrated. People remember that. So we'll see. But I'm on the Alhassan side as a dog here at 7,900. I think he can get the job done and maybe early. These fighters obviously can do some damage early on, bigger dudes. So I'm on Razak Alhassan. Title, where you stand between Buckley and these two.
Yeah, fair warning. Alhassan has been the biggest kryptonite of me. I don't think I've got one Alhassan fight right.
He's one of the only guys I actually remember, because two of the times when we had him like heavy, he just got stroked. So
and then
he's one of the ones I remember.
Yeah. So
tree trunk legs, like just a huge dude, and just sucks.
These two are grown ass men for sure. Yeah. Then the next fight, though, he came out. He looked way better. Got a first round knockout. Like, it looked beautiful.
That was the last fight too, right?
Let me throw something at you, Title, because you look at this fight is favored to finish inside the distance, but Buckley outside of that knockout has looked a little bit hesitant to me. Neither of these guys throw, frankly, that heavy of volume, right? If you look at the numbers, they're both around kind of 4 strikes per 15 minutes, which is kind of a middling number. Very little takedowns. I don't think there's going to be control time in this fight. So to me, this one could be one where they kind of neutralize each other. They could potentially both be afraid of the other one's power, right? You just don't know the mentality that they're coming in, but it seems like a pretty reasonable outcome to me, where they're a little bit cautious. They're not throwing as hard because they know one mistake and they're getting their lights put out. And then you throw in the fact that there's very little chance that there's takedowns or control time. And the fact that I think people are going to see that this fight is so favored to finish inside the distance that everybody is going to want a piece. And just from a game theory perspective, I see a a potential fade here on this fight, honestly, because I think most people are going to want one side or the other. I get it, but I don't think a second or third round knockout necessarily gets you there, because I don't think it's going to be a ton of volume before that point, right? We talked about at the very beginning of the show, you want volume and then you want like a finish at the end of the round, ideally from a striker, but I don't think you're going to get the volume. And I don't know. I have a weird feeling about this fight that it just kind of is a dud, and they respect each other's power. Maybe you get some boos from the crowd. I don't know, but that's just how I see it. But we'll throw it to you, Title, for your thoughts.
No, all of that. I mean, we've seen fights go like that. It makes sense. Like, and that's completely against what Vegas thinks. If you look under 1.5 minus 115,
right?
And like that
means, but people know that means they're going to be super heavily owned. Yep.
And you look at the prices, 8,300, 7,900. This fight's going to be really popular for sure. Buckley's going to be really, really popular. And I'm with you. Like, I wanted to give the fair warning that if I pick Alhassan, probably picking Buckley is a sharp way. If I pick Buckley, picking Alhassan is probably a sharp way. That's just how it goes with me in Alhassan. I'm on Alhassan. I'm on Alhassan on this fight, though. I mean, like, just you look at the odds. Like, why is Buckley minus 165? Like, this is a coin flip fight, in my opinion. Both of these guys are grown ass men. They're going to be throwing down. I think it ends in the first round. Personally, it's not a hot take. That's kind of what Vegas is saying. I just think somebody connects with the power. And I agree with you. Like, I think Buckley is a little overrated from that knockout. He throws more feints than he does strikes. He likes walking forward, ducking his head, throwing his hands and stuff like that.
Listen, if you have the most spectacular knockout in UFC history, you're probably going to be overrated. It's just, you know.
And we were on him. There was a big dog. That was against Impa. That was a really, really fun one. These guys are going to be throwing. I think it ends. If you're right, you are definitely right. If this fight gets out of the second round, there is 0.001 chance this fight's on the optimal. The thing is, like, are you going to pivot to the Balbita fight? There's other fights you can pivot to and stuff. But I think Buckley's going to be popular. I know he's going to be popular. That's why I like the Alhassan side. I even think he does win this fight. And I personally think someone's going to land the power early, which is why I like it. It's not a hot take. I'll go with the lower owned guy. I'll go with the dog. And I truly do think Alhassan does get the job done. But like I said, I'm 0-3, 0-4 on Alhassan fights. So take it how you will.
One fun thing about UFC is you can sort of hedge even on an individual fight with betting and then your MMA lineups, right? And to me, this is one where I think I'm going to fade the fight for the most part on my DraftKings lineups, but then maybe bet Alhassan to win it in the first round. You know, that big plus number where it's like, okay, if it duds out, I'm good because my lineups benefit. And if Alhassan finishes early, maybe you win the bet to kind of cover
plus 500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so that's my approach to this one. But I mean, look at Alhassan. You know, he's had some round ones, but like those 2-3 round losses, you just see the lack of output from him.
The gas tank is bad. If it gets out of the first round, the gas.
I think both these guys have a questionable gas tank, and I think they're going to start slow. Like, you don't just come running out there when the other guy's got the massive power that both like. When you watch these fighters walk out to the cage, you're gonna be like, oh shit, someone's going to sleep, and maybe so, but I think that they're gonna be cautious. You got to be when the other guy packs so much power. So I guess, you know, maybe a strong take for me on this one, but I think this fight has the potential. Obviously, could end it very early, but I think it has the potential to be a disappointing one. Thoughts here, T, on Buckley and Alhassan?
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with exactly what you guys said. I just soaking it in. I mean, it was not to go back to the Schroeder thing again, but it's just game theory. If you're not using any game theory in your tournament builds, you're just doing it wrong, I think. And I think at Run Pure, it's what we do better than anyone. I think we do a lot of stuff good. Projections and stuff are good. Content's good, but I think game theory above all, and I think that's why most people like the site more than other sites too, is game theory. Showdowns are like people's favorites, and just people love how we can look at stuff from a different angle. Obviously, everyone has access to all the same stuff these days. Everyone sees the minus 350 to finish inside the distance, 2 killers. So I agree with DC. Doesn't mean I'm gonna not like this fight, because obviously for the same reasons it's in there, but I'm going to price it and kind of do what I've done and let the optimizer do it. but I'm not going to go all in on this fight. I used to always just go all in on this fight, and I kind of learned my lesson, because when these guys gas out, especially freaking Alhassan, who I've seen suck a few times, he's done. Once he gasses, he's done. So DC's right. If you can hit that, I don't even think it'll be through the second round. If it's like midway through the second and you can just tell he's gassed, I think it's probably over and DC's going to be good. And if you were off that, like we talked earlier, if you can somehow fade the main event like Title last week, it was just awesome, because 80% of the teams can't hit the optimal now. Similar to this, I guarantee you about 80% are going to have this fight. And if you can bank it, big leg up in a $15, $20 tournament with 100K up top. So I agree with DC. I say all that. I think I'm going to get back on Alhassan here. The good part too, what I do, I think in MMA, which helps me, is I don't ever in a fight like this, I shouldn't say ever, but most of the time I'll pick a side and not split them. Like, I think too many people split this fight and go 30 or 40% both of them. When one of them doesn't hit, half your teams are dead. If it goes DC's way, almost all your teams are dead. I'd rather just play like 50% Alhassan, be maybe slightly above the field, and then 50% where I don't have either one of them or something, and maybe I get lucky like DC's way. They gas out. I could see that happening too. I really could. In DC's, I could see that happening.
If you've got either fighter, like we've done enough, DFS MMA where it's like, if you got either fighter in this fight, you're like sweating like 2 minutes into the fight if neither of these guys are getting close to a finish, because you have to get a finish, because there's not going to be any control time. There's not going to be a huge number of strikes landed, because if they do land, land flush, the fight's over. But I just don't think there's going to be a ton of volume even before that. So I think there are a number of outs. And then, neither fighter is particularly cheap. So you've got that out.
Alhassan side too. Like, I could see Buckley winning like uglier. I couldn't see Alhassan winning like uglier. So I like playing Alhassan heavy like this. So I'm almost merging what you guys are saying, which I also think I'm decent at, like listening to you guys and soaking it. Like I said, 50 or 60% Alhassan, 40% fade the whole thing, not play any Buckley. And I like that direction a lot. I feel very good about the breakdown you guys both gave. So I'm going to put it right in my plan.
Because you're overweight on 2 of the 3 outcomes. If it's a fade,
and it's the 2 outcomes I want.
Exactly.
So when Buckley starches him and scores 120, we go back to our other plan where I'm trying to mid cash.
Yeah,
go back to the mid cash plan.
I'm not playing 150, but I think I'm playing 10, and I'm going to have a similar approach where it's probably going to be like 3 Alhassans, maybe 1 Buckley, and then 40 to 50 to 60% just fade in the fight entirely.
I think your plan's the best plan. If you really like, say someone out there doesn't have a huge bankroll watching this, it's NBA All-Star break, you're only playing like $40 and you want to put 2 entries in the big tournament, I think your plan is the best to ship that thing. Yeah, it's the most risky too, but you're putting $20-$40. You could go to the movies, or you could take a chance at this. I think your plan is the best to ship this tournament, I think.
Man,
because you're not dead. Say one of them does get 115. You're still not dead just because you didn't play it. You're not eliminated.
You're not. If a couple dogs get there at lower price points, you can make it up. So
there's like 9 fights expected to end inside the distance on this.
People always think you're dead. It happens every week in chat. Like, just because you didn't get on it, you're not. Yeah, maybe you can't ship first place, but you're not dead.
I'm making the big T note to just to fade it. I think I'm just gonna fade this fight.
Taking notes,
especially if you're only playing 10 teams or something. Like, who cares? If you're wrong, you're wrong. Like, who cares? You're not dead, even if you don't.
It's also the last fight before the main card, so you got time to maybe you jump.
Yeah.
Do they have the secondary contest? The main card?
Do they always do that just for the main card? I've never.
They always fill out before before you would even have to enter that, because you're drawing dead. Like, the main reason you would enter that is when they can't win the big one anymore.
Yeah, when you're stone dead.
But then it's already full anyway, so you can't even enter it. But
that fight's on the captain mode one too. So no.
Okay. The captain mode.
Yeah, that fight's on it.
So that is Buckley. I guess that the fight does kick off the main card. Rather, I said that's the last fight before, but it is on the first fight of the main card for good reason. I mean, that's normally what they put on, right? To open the main card is like a fight they expect to kind of inside finish inside the distance, suck people in for the rest of the night. So that's Buckley, Alhassan, certainly an interesting one. And we'll move on to another one, the veteran Jim Miller, who I believe has the most fights in UFC history. I think this is like fight number, I don't know, like 37 or something like that for Jim Miller. Still getting the job done. I talked about betting UFC like 7-8 years ago. Miller was like a veteran at that point. He's still in the game, still doing his thing, still fighting pretty well. He is an underdog here to Mota. Nicholas Mota coming in -170, -180. Man, I'll throw this one to you, Title, but I don't see the justification for. I haven't been that impressed with Mota. I know Jim Miller is older; he's a veteran, but he still pulls off some pretty impressive victories from time to time. I just don't see where Mota's necessarily better than Jim Miller, and Miller's not really a guy that I worry that much about, his age or the veteran. Like he's still like fighting his whole life, and he'll show up. And
how many damn fights does this? Every fight we've gone to, I've like scrolled. This dude, I have to scroll like 100 times. How old is this dude?
Well, he's like 38, but I'm saying he's got like as many fights as years.
33-16 pro record, been in the UFC since like 2008. Yeah,
he has a shit ton of fights.
But he fights well. I mean, he's still out there. I'm not really worried about he had like Lyme disease.
Yeah,
I think
he still might. I don't know if that goes away, but exactly.
That's what I was gonna say. I think that's just like a thing.
He's got 49 fights in the UFC. Seriously.
30. Yeah, that sounds right.
It's honestly just like hard to believe and impressive to.
That's the most impressive. Imagine fighting killers for that long.
He's got fights with points in 2008 on here.
That's what I'm saying, man. He has been around forever. He's still he's like the same dude that he's always been. Still puts up a fight almost every time. And I just don't really get why he's a significant underdog here. Plus 155. You can get him on DraftKings right now. I've already bet that number on Miller. I don't know. Talk to me. Maybe I'm missing something on Mota because I obviously know what to expect from Miller at this point. We've seen him fight for 14 years, but Mota less so. So talk to me about him.
Yeah. So this is the second time this fight's been booked. Nicholas Mota hasn't fought since the Contender Series in November of 2020. He's had multiple fights fall out. The man can strike. I mean, on the feet, why the line is where it's at is on the feet. It's Nicholas Mota all day. Fast hands, he's got power, and Jim Miller's not a striker, as we know. He's coming off a knockout win, which, I mean, that's not Jim Miller usually. Like, if that was your first time watching Jim Miller, he's not a knockout artist.
He's got a few in his 50 UFC fights.
Yeah, he's got a few. He's found the chin once in a while, but he wants the fight on the mat. And if Jim Miller gets the fight on the mat, a lot of his wins are by first round submission. Because I disagree a little with you. I think the age, I hate seeing guys get up there. I think he is slowing down a little bit. The chin's going a little more than.
I mean, a little bit. But
he's been known to have a really good chin in his UFC career, which is why he's been fighting for this long. But you only can take so much damage, and age can only go so far. So I'm worried about Mota cracking that chin. Mota's way faster on the feet, the movement. Jim Miller might only need one takedown though, which is why I think the line is where it is. It's -190 to end inside the distance. I don't think. If Jim Miller can't get a takedown, I don't think Jim Miller will survive 15 minutes with Mota on the feet. If Miller gets one takedown in the first round, I'm not sure Mota can get out of that position and walk away. I think it'd be a first round Jim Miller submission. So at 8,500, 7,700, especially if you're fading that Buckley Alhassan fight, 8,300, 7,900. I think this is the pivot that you have to go to, the Miller and Mota fight, because you don't want to go to the Balbita Paula fight at 8,200, 8,000. There isn't too many fights in the mid tier. The Onama fight, we already talked about how he like. I think this is the pivot though from that Buckley fight. I think it's a little lower owned, and I do think it finishes. I think it's Mota on the feet all day. My pick is Mota, 38 years old. I hate to see it. The chin's going a little bit. He slows down as the fight goes too. The cardio isn't great. But man, first round, you're going to be sweating. I think it's more of a live betting opportunity. If anything, if Mota gets out of the first round, it's Mota all day. In my opinion, I'd be surprised to see another Jim Miller second round win. Mota's way better than Miller's last opponent, but I like Mota's hands. I think they're nice. It's his UFC debut though. So second time booked. The first time this fight was booked, the odds were way closer than they are now. I'm not really sure what warranted the -170 or something. So yeah, I think the value on the betting side makes sense for where you pulled the trigger. My pick's going to be Mota, but I'm going to have some Jim Miller because the first round submission at 7,700, you're feeling really good that that's on the optimal. So I like this fight for sure. You two going to have a lot of fight fades of the Buckley Alhassan. I think you have to be overweight on this fight.
Yeah, I'm in on Jim Miller. I'll pull the Big T special. There's no points in UFC, but I don't need the points. Jim Miller wins this one outright. I'll say that. Big T, your thoughts here, Miller and Mota.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my first lock of the.
It's gonna be Mota, guaranteed.
I'm gonna give my first lock of the show, and it is Mr. Mota. I mean, this other dude is. Woo! I was doing some research on him when you guys were talking. He's old. Oh man, Mota's gonna destroy this.
I will say,
I've agreed with DC on a bunch of these.
Miller been proving people wrong for 14
Big T,
years.
last time you gave that lock. Remember last time was when Mad Lab was all over Garbrandt. I was on KKF, and you said KKF first lock of the night. You got it done.
Goes back to my memory where I don't remember the.
Oh my goodness!
I don't.
As long as Mad Lab was wrong, I'm good with that.
He was.
Yeah, I remember that was when Mad Lab gave a long talk about it. I was like, I like the other dude, and we won. I do remember that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't take Jim Miller, so I think Mota is a lock for me. I'll keep it simple.
All right. Well, Title and Big T are dead. Their lineups are dead. So 300 of the 36,000 lineups we don't need to worry about. You guys can ride with me on Jim Miller. We are very live headed in.
I'm still impressed at how many fights the dude has, though. Like, that is a lot of fights.
Lyme's disease, like everything going on.
Oh, he had Lyme's disease too?
Yeah.
He's a fighter.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that goes away.
I can't start talking about diseases. I might get back on him by the time the show's over.
He overcame Lyme disease to fight 20 more times in the UFC. That's how badass Jim Miller is. You guys are crazy betting.
Hey, everyone watching, you found DC's favorite fighter in the UFC,
Jim Miller.
Cashing tickets from him 9 years ago on DVD.
He does got all the DVDs. That is why he's on him.
He saw the line. He's waiting to hammer it every time a book came out. Miller.
You know what? Scouting report. It is Jim Miller.
And you know what? If you want to fast forward life 14 years from now, when we're both 50 plus, me and Jim Miller, I'll still be betting on him. He'll still be getting UFC wins. So
me, you, and Jim Miller will be in our 50s. Title will be 29.
Beard will be getting even grayer at that point. Title will still be a youngster. You know, he'll still be running laps around us. But that's all good. Jim Miller, my pick there. You guys disagree. You'll be wrong, but that's cool. Let's go to the next fight. A lot of lighter weight fighters on this card, but two big boys here, Porter and Baudot, I think is how you say it. Baudot, Alan Baudot, Parker Porter coming in -250 to -300. I actually think that line could potentially be bigger. I've been really unimpressed with what I've seen from Baudot. I think he was fighting at light heavyweight, you know, like in the lower, regional scene or whatever. So he weighed in at 205. Then his next fight in the UFC was on short notice, and I think he came in at 254. He gained 49 pounds?
Yeah, he gained 50 pounds.
So he's like a middleweight fighting at heavyweight. I like betting against those guys. I have not been impressed with Baudot. Porter is not some world beater, but I do think should be the favorite here. This fight is favored, as we usually see with most heavyweight fights, to finish inside the distance. Big T, we're gonna mix it up here. We're gonna go to you first. I'm tired of you being influenced by Title and going against
I'm glad you came to me this one too, because I actually remember these two fighters. It's one of the actual fights that I remember, because this Porter dude is fat, like real fat. I remember him, and he scored
but
good.
At least he's fat and big. Baudot's fat and small.
No, exactly. And I do actually like Porter in the fight too, because I don't think he's great, but I do remember both of these fights when I pull it up. I mean, he scored 101 and 106, and both of them have been what? I guess the one was in November of 2020. I was thinking they were both last year, but both in the last time span. I like him again. I think this other dude is just terrible. The line's big. It's another fighter up in that price range again, where this is why you got to fade some of those middle fights, because you just can't get exposure to all these guys, 87, 88, 92. You can't play them all without filtering in some dogs. But Porter is definitely going to be one I play. The other dude, definitely a fade for me. I think the other dude is really, really bad. So, yeah, I mean, to keep it simple, big boys, same reasoning too. DC had for the other fight in a different way. I mean, this could easily bust too if they tire out a little bit and it goes deep. But I think Porter finishes him. I think Porter has a big score. Not going to lock him in or anything because he's not very good either, I don't think. But I do think he wins. I do think he puts up a decent score. So I'll probably play him, I don't know, 40% or something on my teams.
It makes sense. I do wonder when I watch these with these big boys, these heavyweights fight, and they're like super fat. It's like, how do you train for a fight and like not like lose some of that just like gross gut? Like
they have to just like eat absurd.
But what I'm saying is like, I've recently gotten in shape in the last half a year.
But you're trying to like lean up though too.
A little bit, but like I'm drinking beers every day, eating pizza, and I'm just.
Well, you can overeat though. Like order a large pizza and eat it all yourself.
I do.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
No, and you're not gaining weight even with
weight. And I'm just like running for an hour or two.
If I ate a full large, I'd be freaking definitely gaining weight.
Oh, I
don't think they're running 10 miles a day.
Yeah, I'm not running 10.
But they're not running 10 miles. I mean, they're professional athletes. I just whatever. But I just don't really understand how they don't like, tighten that body up a little bit. You're training. You're like presumably
some of them are like really
day.
Fat too, like real fat.
I just don't get it. But
just flabbing all over the place.
Yeah, it's not like it's just like literal flab, just like hanging over their shorts. It's gross. I don't like watching these guys. But Tyler, your thoughts, Porter and Baudot.
Well, my first question is, how of all people does Big T remember these two dudes of every single other
I remember Porter because he's literally has like tires around his stomach. Like it's just so fat.
But
I don't know how I remember either, but maybe it's because his body looks like mine. I remember it a little bit more.
Big T, I bet you look better than these two fighters. This is
I definitely look better than Porter with my shirt off. Not much better, but I do look better than Porter.
Yeah, but going back to this fight, I mean, the first sentence I said in the playbook, kind of like you guys said, we have a low-level heavyweight fight between Parker Porter, what I believe to be the worst heavyweight and maybe the worst fighter in the UFC, and Alan Baudot. I think that's all that needs to be said. I mean, this guy, I think he is the worst fighter in the UFC. I mean,
this guy would get starched at 205, and now he's got to face.
Oh, I would take a lot of 205ers.
All of them.
This guy literally quit last fight. Like his cardio is nothing. And the thing about Parker Porter, I don't think he's good, but he actually does have cardio and throws good volume for 15 minutes, which is enough to beat a lot of heavyweights actually. And this guy, you don't even need that to beat him. So it's Parker Porter all day. I think Baudot is the easiest fade in the world. And people are going to play Baudot because you look at it. Plus 330 for him to finish the fight, minus 200 inside the distance. Like people are going to play him.
He's so bad. He's literally one of the worst.
I think he is the worst.
God, he's bad.
I'll say this: under no scenario will you'll find any Alan Baudot in my lineups.
No chance.
Out of the pool. I'm not going all in on Parker Porter because I could see this just being a bum fight.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys in the top.
I could have like 10,000 lineups and I wouldn't play this other dude.
Yeah. Easiest fade on the card.
Yeah. You got like 70 wives and they're just all of them. No Baudot. But yeah, that's Porter, Baudot. We're all on the Porter side. I don't think Tyler, you're with me where you're not like have to play Porter either, right? You're okay fading this one?
I mean, there's just so many guys in the upper tier, like Batista. We're gonna get to Dawkins, Hill, like Pierce.
Porter probably does end up lower owned than we think too because of this, though. I mean, there's a lot of killers above him.
I like a lot of Porter. The thing is, I will say like 8,900. He throws deep. I don't think he's gonna be low by any means.
And he's fighting a trash can. Like he does have a decent chance to.
I have him actually as one of the higher owned in the upper tier. Actually, I have 35%.
I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Porter kind of end this one early. Baudot just seems like a guy just like give up, right?
He quits. He quit.
It could be the same thing though, where we've talked about the whole show where Porter dominates him and the score still doesn't hit the winner somehow, even with the knockout. Just the way this card's set up. I mean, it could happen.
You don't, heavyweight takedowns are rarer than the other divisions. So
Porter doesn't need a takedown in this one, and Baudot, I'm not worried about Baudot taking Porter down.
Baudot, that would empty his whole gas tank. That would be one takedown, and he's just done.
Picking Porter up or getting that guy. I mean, those legs are tree trunks. Like Porter,
we got to move on because the more shit we talk about Baudot, we're increasing his chances of busting our lineups. If we just keep going, he's going to do it.
If Baudot wins, no one that's watching the show will ever come back and watch a Run Pure Sports MMA show. Nobody. Yeah. And I wouldn't blame him.
Yeah. Well, he won't, so we're good. Let's go to the co-main event, or the second to last fight. A good one here, I think, between Kyle Dawkins, who is a very good wrestler, a guy that I'm pretty high on in general, against Jamie Pickett, a guy that I'm less high on. This one kind of close in terms of, go to the decision or not. It actually is favored to go to decision minus 150, but bringing it back all the way to the beginning of the show title, this could be one where I see, even if Dawkins does not get the win here, I think he could put up a pretty big score. You look at, a lot of takedowns, a lot of control time, pretty active on top. Did get that weird no decision against Holland in that last fight. Obviously you watched that title.
Headbutt.
Yeah, just a strange fight. But then it continued, and then I don't know.
He choked him out, and then they reviewed it after. That was really,
very strange. But
might have been the weirdest fight ever.
Yeah,
that I've seen.
Holland admitted. Holland. I like watching.
Wasn't it the one where Herb was helping the other ref decide what to do?
Yeah, they all were. Yeah, they were getting in a circle. They had no clue what to do. It was so messed up.
Yeah. Bizarre fight, but if you just throw out the result, Dawkins looked pretty impressive to me, I thought, and I expect him to be impressive going forward, frankly. So I'm on the Dawkins side here, 8,800, priced a little bit below some of the other top guys. What is he, minus 250 or so? Yeah, 300.
Minus 290, DraftKings 270, FanDuel 255. It's all over. Price shop. You got to price shop in MMA. Best fight odds if you're betting it. Definitely look at that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think those odds are justified. I think Dawkins controls this fight with his wrestling. And I think he puts up a big score, whether he finishes or not. One of those where maybe he actually puts up a bigger score if this fight goes the distance. I wouldn't be shocked. So I'm in on Dawkins. Pickett, I just don't think he's going to beat Dawkins. That's just the way I see it. I think Dawkins has too many paths to victory. Just, that's the way I see it going down. Title, do you see it any differently between Dawkins and Pickett?
2 for 2. I'm on Dawkins too. Been very impressed with him. I mean, we all watched that fight. It says no contest on the record, but he beat Kevin Holland. He choked him out. He was having success on the feet. He looked really good. As far as Pickett, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. But man, I've never seen 2 fights that you just do the bare minimum to win a fight and have it be the most boring thing ever. Staropoli, dude's not even the UFC anymore. He's a bum. But Pickett hardly did anything. He doesn't throw a lot of volume. He pretty much has stuffed the takedowns, headed against the fence, and that was enough to win. Then he fights Joseph Holmes, who was making his UFC debut. Holmes was kind of putting it on him in the first round. And after that, Pickett's gas tank was a little better. I mean, 2-fight winning streak, but I couldn't be any less impressed than what he's done. And Dawkins, the guy could strike. We know his brother, obviously, Chris Dawkins. These guys can fight. Dawkins on the mat is black belt. This man is really, really tough on the mat. I think there's levels to this. He's way on another level than Pickett when it gets to the mat. On the feet, I'm still saying Dawkins is the better striker. Obviously, Pickett, he can connect and land a big one. It's MMA. We can see that. But everywhere else, besides the one shot that he gets knocked out on, I think it's Dawkins wherever this fight goes. We keep talking all these big names up top. That's why this card is tough, because you're going to have to find a dog. I always say there's a dog that comes through. Don't stack fights. Don't do all that. There's going to be a dog. And if there's not, then I just will never win on a fight stack or stuff like that. But 8,800 for Dawkins. He has as much upside as anybody else on the slate.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on Dawkins. I like the fact that he's got a brother that fights too. I mean, it kind of just tells you that it's in the blood, right? And that you're taking this shit seriously. And I just expect improvement out of him. Just a, a little bit of a narrative street there, if you will. T, your thoughts here, Dawkins and Pickett?
Yeah, I mean, when you guys started talking, full disclosure, I thought this was the dude Derek Lewis knocked out. So he's got a brother. His brother's the one that I got it now. I was confused there for a minute because I didn't know there was two of them. I just remember that name. But I'm with you guys. I don't like Pickett. We talked about some other dogs. I'm going Dawkins. I mean, you guys gave a good breakdown.
Pickett a full fade for me. I won't have 100% Dawkins, but no Pickett. I just don't think he's going to win this fight. And got to take a stand somewhere. So that's Dawkins, Pickett. We'll go to the main event. It's supposed to be the co-main event, but Dos Anjos Fiziev off the card. But Jamal Hill and Johnny Walker going to do battle. Hill has been really impressive. Title, I know he's a favorite of yours. Really nice hands, right? Just clean striking. A fun guy to watch. This fight probably does stay standing, and I think Hill's going to piece him up. This one seems like the DFS analysis is a little bit tougher because I don't think Hill, he's going to need a lot of volume and maybe an early finish to get there at his price point. But in terms of just who wins the fight, I really do favor Jamal Hill here. I'll be surprised if he loses this one. Minus 250 you can get him at, which seems like frankly a pretty good bet to me. Maybe Hill by knockout if you want to go that direction. I do think it stays on the feet, as I said. Give me Jamal Hill. We know main events because they're scheduled to go 5 rounds. Most people want one of the two fighters in the main event. Title, you talked about fading Adesanya. That fight in the last card turned out to be a smart move, right? I'm not against that in this fight. I'll have some Jamal Hill for sure, but things are really going to have to go his way, I think, in a number of ways for him to end up on the optimal at 9K. Because I don't think he's going to get control time or takedown. So it's going to have to be a lot of volume and a finish from Jamal Hill. You need both. So I don't mind, fading a fighter like that, but I know you're a fan, Title, so talk to me about Jamal Hill and Johnny Walker here.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I think it's going to be a first or second round knockout. The man throws good volume for the division. We saw Johnny Walker coming off probably the most boring 5-round fight I've ever seen. He landed like 48 significant strikes against Thiago Santos. Jamal Hill doesn't let you do that. He cuts off the cage really well. It's in the apex, so it's a smaller cage. Man, I'm just so high on Jamal Hill. And the one fight he did lose, Big T was all over Paul Craig. And Jamal Hill, he didn't lose because of his skills. He lost because he's so confident in all of his skills. He thought he could follow Paul Craig to the mat. IQ decision. Very, very stupid. He followed him to the mat.
You probably learned from that, right? That's probably a one-time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wasn't happy that night. I'm not happy because I lost money, but I think that helps his career going forward. Then we come back and we get Jamal Hill as a plus 150 dog against a good fighter in Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute, I'm definitely high on, but man, you can just see Jamal Hill's hands and his power. He says, touch him up university. It was always what he says, because the volume, he just touches you with a jab, touches you, then he hits you, and that power just puts you down. I'm so high on this guy. I think it's going to be a first round knockout, maybe a second round knockout. And Johnny Walker's chin is questionable, which is also another thing I like. He does all these fancy spinning weird techniques and stuff. Sure, maybe one of them lands. And even Jamal Hill said, like, yeah, any of those can land. And would I go to sleep if he hits me square? Sure. But like, I think it's Jamal Hill all day. I think first round knockout. The volume's always there. I really wish the RDA and Fiziev fight were on this card, because this fight was only 3 rounds. I don't think we need 3 rounds. The fight would have been lower owned if it's a 3-rounder instead of 5-rounder. So I'm actually sad about it, but I'm so high on this guy. There's no way I go against him. I think first, second round knockout. Love the inside the distance bet. Sprinkle plus money on first round. Jamal Hill's my boy, sweet dreams. So yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, Jamal Hill favored to win by knockout or TKO, sitting around minus 130. Sounds like you like the first or second round, Jamal, to win this one. I'm with you on that one. So again, do the line shopping, but that does seem like a pretty fun bet to have, and always a fun thing to cheer for. I'll second you on Hill. I think he is too light of a favorite here, frankly, at minus 250. So Walker will be, I think, a full fade for me or close to it. I'll have a decent amount of Jamal Hill, not all in or anything.
Before you go to Big T, if anyone didn't see that last fight with Jamal Hill and Jimmy Crute, Go on Google and search Jimmy Crute eye, and you will see what Jamal Hill did to that man in a couple minutes. I mean, and Jimmy Crute was favored -170. Jimmy Crute's a stud. You type in Jimmy Crute eye and Jamal Hill, yeah, he did him dirty for sure. So this man's special, I think.
Yeah,
I think he'll be fighting for a title one day. I'm really that high in him, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Jamal Hill made that IQ decision, lost to Craig,
Yep.
And then came back and man.
Did you see that eye?
Yeah, big statement. Early finish for Jamal Hill. Could be the same here. Could be sweet dreams for Johnny Walker. Big T, your thoughts on the main event here?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we've had a bunch of takes throughout the show that I feel like it's ending a little boring, but like on the playbook, Pickett and the Allen dude are both fades. I agreed. I mean, this one I kind of agree. I mean, Jamil Hill looks like a way better fighter. The dude in the chat said Walker's only been knocked out once since 2016. Kind of goes.
His chin's been hurt multiple times. I think that's a pretty misleading personally. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's -500 to end inside. I mean, I basically agree with that, everything you guys said. And the nice part about jamming a favorite in the main event, which I love, so many people either stack the fight or play the dog because it's 7,200, 5 rounds. So it just soaks up ownership. Again, I know we keep talking about it, but it's what MMA tournaments are about. If Johnny Walker's 30 to 40% owned and he gets starched and knocked out and scores 20 points or less, half the field, 30, 40, 50% of the not 50, but 30, 40% of the field is dead, even though they got a dog. It's just all those little things add up. So I know it's a boring finish for me. I mean, 3 favorites, 3 bigger guys, but I'm going with you guys on all 3 of them.
I'll have 0 Walker in 150, and he's going to be the most popular guy in the lower range because, like, you look at his inside the distance odds, 5 rounds. I'll have 0 and 150.
Like, you're better off rolling I know some of those we talked about. DC liked the first one. I think Title liked the second one. I don't remember their names at this second.
Rodriguez, Perrin. I like those
sure,
guys
they're more likely to probably get you a tiny score than the main event, but they're also going to be lower owned, different path, and higher upside to actually win somehow because the person they're fighting is not near as good as Sweet Dreams. So I don't know.
Well,
I'm with you.
The problem with playing Walker, I agree with you completely, T. I don't think Walker has like one, he doesn't really do wrestling, right? So he's probably not going to be the wrestling and the control time that gets him there. Yeah. Walker's path to victory is like one lucky crazy strike. But that might not even be enough, frankly. You know, if there's no volume or anything before that. So I just can't get to Walker at all in my lineups. We'll have a bunch of Hill, who is a high volume guy and does seem to have pretty good chance at ending this one early. So
I do agree with DC though. I don't think you have to like click the lock button. I mean, there's a lot of good fighters up top. It could be similar where if you know these guys are going to be 60% and 30%, I think you can live with just playing field on Hill, like 50, 60%. Fade definitely. Walker. Yep. You're still way above the field because you're fading the 30% Walker. And I don't know. I can see this not being in the winner though. Like Title said, if it was 3 rounds, would it be that high owned? No. If it doesn't go 3 rounds, I don't know. I kind of agree with your guys' points there.
We could see 2 130 pieces from other guys in the upper tier, and then a 115 somehow.
Listen, Jamal Hill's not taking this to the ground. That's where you get the huge points with the control time, and if you're landing strikes down there, you're just racking up points in a hurry. Probably not going to happen here. I could see Jamal Hill just perhaps he's got the striking, but maybe he can't finish them, and maybe it's wins a 50-45, but puts up 102 fantasy points, something like that.
You should bet that DC. That's over plus 550, plus 565.
It does make me think he's going to finish him, but I mean, -5 on. Either way, though, like we've talked about it all show. Even if he finishes him, he's not a lock
for sure.
Yep,
for sure.
I think you're going to need an early finish from Jamal Hill for him to be on the optimal, and we know he's going to be super high owned. So I won't be all in on him, but it sounds like complete fades or close to it anyway with Johnny Walker.
Complete fade for me.
Yeah, in the main event. So those last few fights, we're all on the same page.
You're still just stacking them up at the cash, just stacking them up and letting them ride.
I am, and it sucks, but I am. That's the only way I get my exposure. You know how I do it. I play.
Why not just stack like the other fight where you kind of like the dog?
Like, Walker's gonna be like 70%.
You love Sweet Dreams. Pound the field.
I do. I don't.
Are you guys gonna make your bet where Title's got to take the?
It's not when there's only one. I mean, I will if he wants to play Walker, but the problem is I always play my tournament team, and Title's too sharp. I need 3 main events. I need him to split.
Title's always searching for those little edges.
Oh, Big T's the one that likes it. I mean, Big T.
No, you love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Last time he pounded me, I was dead like 2 fights in. Like he had a dude get like 150 or something on.
And you had the other guy. I think we went opposite on that.
I don't think it was the same fight.
No.
It would be interesting if there was
and then you got the 150, so it was basically the same fight.
MMA late stop would be interesting if you could swap the fighters.
No, that would be impossible.
It'd be very.
I didn't say it would be good. I said it would.
I would hate that. There would be a huge edge though, but man, would that be brutal?
No, but I mean, especially on fight nights, you kind of want to have your lineups locked in and just enjoy.
Oh yeah.
So, because then you can hedge. You know where you're sitting going in the last fight and all that stuff. Yeah.
Should be a fun card. They all are pretty much in the UFC, even when they don't go well. There's still going to be some spectacular knockouts. I think this is going to be a card that kind of ramps up excitement as the card progresses. So that'll do it for us. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. 2-hour MMA show for frankly one of the worst cards of the year, but that's all good. We're here for you guys. Ship. Yeah, we'll ship it tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in as always. And I think Title. We're going to make this show more often, right? Or maybe as a podcast, where we're going to start rolling this out even for the non pay-per-view events, because we do enjoy doing it. And we know you guys enjoy listening or watching or whatever it is. So that'll do it for us. For Big T, for Title, I'm DC. We'll be back next week and we'll check you next time.